When it comes to the subject of reuse, sometimes reuse is okay, but sometimes it can be excessive. And in this case, the Batman figure that we're looking at today is a good example where it just feels excessive. And the reason why I say this is because when this figure was revealed as the second figure in the Plastic Man build wave, a lot of people were disappointed, and for good reasons. If you have the original version of this Three Jokers Batman figure, or even the repainted version that came out in the Bat Family 5-pack, why would you want to waste money on the same figure again for the third time? And this is one of those examples where Mcfarlane Toys was basically being greedy, and they're basically forcing us, the consumers, to buy another figure that we probably have a version of before, just to get the build pieces for Plastic Man. Now, for me, I happen to be fortunate in this situation because I don't have the previous two versions of this Batman figure at all. I never picked them up in the past for some strange reason. I don't know why, but I guess it saved me this time around. But in terms of two other build waves that I have built before, well, I was also in a similar situation like maybe some of you out there that had a version of that figure that was released as an independent release and then they just reissued it into the build wave. So I know what that pain is like when you have to spend money on the same figure again for the second or maybe a third time, right? So yeah, not a fan when they do stuff like this, but it just happens and it sucks. But what can you do, right? All right, just wanted to bring that up first. Now, let's dive into the review. So, of course, with Batman, we already know his origins, so we do not need to look into the data profile card. And I will just say this right away. This figure doesn't even work for the source material, because if you look at this artwork here, it would have been better if they sculpted a brand new Batman figure to look remotely close to this, design, than just calling it a day and slapping a simple repaint like this together. So, all right, what does this figure come with in terms of accessories? Let's start with his own accessories first, because he only comes with one thing, and that is his grapple launcher, as you can see right here. And it is, of course, the reuse of one that came with the original version of the same Batman figure in the past. And as you can see, it does have the whole cable thing being shot out in a very strange way. So even when you have him holding it, it just doesn't look right, because it's supposed to be like, oh, he's shooting the cable out, but everything's the same color, so it just looks really strange. But the sculpt details on it doesn't look too bad. But yeah, so you get a grapple launcher, and that's basically all the accessories he has. No batarangs, no interchangeable hands, nothing. Now, in terms of the build pieces that you get with this figure, you do get Plastic Man's more animated arms, as I like to call them, because you can see that they're like effect parts, right? So this one is more like he's hooking over somebody and stopping them from running. So maybe he's catching a criminal, so that's pretty cool that you get this. He also comes with this other long arm that I don't really know what's going on with his hand, but you do have this as well. So if you want the figure to have both of his stretched out arms, you can. So that's an option right there. And of course, he does come with the head sculpt for Plastic Man. As you can see, pretty cool. I do like the expression on this head sculpt. And since he does sometimes stretch out his neck to extend longer, you do have another option right there. So pretty cool. And those are all the build pieces that are included with this figure. And now, let's talk about this figure and its aesthetics. So, as you can see, it is also very simple looking, because it's mainly just all black paint everywhere from head to toe, right? The only contrast on this figure is pretty much just the yellow here in the emblem and the yellow in the belt. And that's pretty much all the details that are on this figure that I can really talk about, because everything else is just, covered in the same colors. But you know what? Let's talk about the things that do stand out to me since, this is the first time I even have this figure. Well, I got this figure last year, but what I'm saying is that this is the only copy that I have of the Three Jokers Batman figure in my collection. One thing I liked that they did was that 4D cowl up here where his mask is and also the cape. There is this really cool texturing that is present and how they painted that. So I really like how that came out for most of this cape right here on the back, and also, his head sculpt area. I like when they do stuff like that, so it just doesn't feel so flat in the colors, right? And as you can see with the head sculpt, you can see all those sort of texture details with what's going on with his mask that he's wearing. And he does have a very stern, serious expression, like he's not going to be messing around, and he's taking this matter seriously. So that's pretty cool. In terms of his emblem, I do like the fact that it is with this sort of bat logo. This is such a classic bat logo that I am familiar with. Like, I love this one because of the Lego Batman video games and some of the Lego Batman sets that I have. And that's why for the thumbnail photo, I was like, what is the closest thing to that bat emblem? And I just remembered, that's right, the Keaton Batman, logo was kind of like this as well. So, for the photo for today's video, I decided to finally find a way to swap the bat signal plate so I can use it for the photo. So, yeah, and you can use this for any Batman figure that you want if you do have this accessory from that movie 6-pack, which, honestly, this bat signal thing is probably one of the coolest things that I have. So, I will show what this Batman looks like next to that thing later. So, yeah, but I like the emblem. Pretty cool. And that's pretty much all I can really talk about when it comes to aesthetics, because everything else on here, it's just sculpted, and we've seen this sculpt before. And I think it looked better on the previous versions than this one, because they did stand out a little bit more because there was a contrast in colors. But in this case, when it's just all black, it's like, well, when it's all one color, there is no contrast anywhere. So he does have the pokey, spike stuff on his gauntlets, as you can see right there. And yeah, that's pretty much it for aesthetics with this figure. I can't really say anything else about it. It's not a bad looking figure, but it does have its weird proportions. Actually, you know what? Let me talk about the proportions now. Let's actually talk about this. I don't know what it is, but for some reason his legs just feel super long. I don't know if it's just me, but I've noticed that the legs on this figure just feels way too long compared to, like, the mass of his body up here and his arms. Like, are human legs supposed to be that long in general, or is that just some people? I don't know, but it looks really weird to me. That's why the proportions look kind of off. Like, it just feels like this is way too long than it should be, right? So, I don't know. It's just me, though. Okay. Let's talk about the articulation on this figure. So, this is the first time, maybe, I think I'm talking about a Batman figure that has this sort of neck articulation where there is no neck joint up here. Usually there's always a cut. Let me just bring in a figure with a good example of that. Like, as you can see, the Superman figure that we last looked at, as you can see right there, has his neck joint like this, right? But this one is one solid piece. So the neck joint is like underneath his neck right here. So if you want him to look down, he looks down. You want him to look up, you can't even... Can you get him to look up? You can, but it's not even like the best because the limitations down here are not great. Now, it would have been awesome if they kept this neck articulation and also had another ball peg up here for the head, so you have two separate movements in the neck, like what they do with a lot of the import figures, such as the SHF figures that I have, because this is like a common newer sort of articulation style that figures are using more often now. But it's really strange how most McFarlane figures, even to this day, when it comes to certain figures, they still do things like this, where, you know, just doesn't allow the head to have much movement. And when you turn this neck, you have to turn the entirety of his neck in order for him to even look to his left or his right side, right? So there's that problem. And then when it comes to tilting his head, you can't do that because the only way to tilt it is with the neck down here. So it doesn't even look right as well. So very limited in the movement in the articulation of his head sculpt because of the way that they did it. As for his arms, he can spread them out like that. He can go forward. He can go a little bit upward. He can swing back. The cape doesn't really exactly get in the way, but of course, you know, he can swing out like this. He does have the double jointed, as you can see. Let me see if it works on this side. It does. There you go. It's like a tight movement right there. He does have the bicep swivel right there on the top. He also has swivel in the hands and, of course, articulation in the wrists. But in this case, it's like pretty hidden beneath his gauntlet, so it doesn't really work for the wrist articulation. As for his torso, there is a good range of movement there, which is nice to see. So that's not too bad. In terms of leaning forward, that doesn't even work. In terms of leaning back, also doesn't even work. So you're not getting much movement with the torso outside of just rotation. As for the bottom area where his waist is, pretty good range of motion right there in terms of rotation. When it comes to leaning forward, nothing. When it comes to leaning back, it can lean back a little bit. So the bottom part works better than the top half. So there's that. In terms of his articulation and his legs, there is upward thigh swivel for this figure, which is pretty cool to see, so it's not frozen. Can he do the splits? Well, not exactly a full split, but still pretty good spread when it comes to his legs. So there's that. In terms of kicking, you can do a full-on kick, but you see what I mean? Like, the legs look way too long, right? Like, doesn't it look strange when he does a kick like this? I don't know. It just looks really strange in the proportions. So there's that. He does have the double jointed, as you can see. And he also has, of course, articulation down here in the feet and the swivel and, of course, toe articulation. And that is basically all the articulation on this Batman figure. It's not great, but, you know, I guess you can still get him into some dynamic poses. Now I'm going to show the accessory that is included on his hand where he can hold this. And basically all you do, let me zoom in, is you basically put this in this way, I think. Just kind of have to get it in his hand. Something like this, I think. There you go. I think it's something like that. I'm not too sure how he's supposed to hold this. But yeah, if you want him to, you know, hold his grapple launcher like he's about to fire it off somewhere, you can do that and he can stand. So there's that. And if you don't want that in his hand, you can just take that off because I think it looks weird being, you know, the cable is like about to shoot out or something, you know. So, all right. And then here he is next to, of course, the bat signal. Let me just show what the figure looks like next to this thing. And yeah, it looks pretty freaking cool. Like, I like the fact that I can use this for any of my Batman figures. And I will warn you now, I'm going to turn the lights on for this thing. So, you know, I don't want to, I'm just going to put that warning. Let me just turn this on. There you go. And as you can see, the light is on. So now you can, you know, have the figure next to the bat signal for fun if you want to. So there's that. And now I'm going to move this out of the way, and let's bring in just two figures for the comparisons. And of course, let's have him next to one of his wave mates, which of course is Superman. So yeah, as I said in my Superman video, I don't think these two really go together nicely on the shelf because the design of the Superman figure looks way too different. But if you want to make this work, you probably can. So there's that. And here is the Batman next to the Silver Age Superman. And I think these two could probably work. Like, I can believe this more, right? If you want to use this Batman for your Justice League shelf, it can definitely fit with the Superman. So in this case, I think this Batman figure isn't bad for that purpose. And that is all the comparisons. If you found today's review enjoyable, do give this video a like. If you want to subscribe to the channel for more action figure content and whatever else I do on here, you can. You don't have to. In the end of the day, I make these videos for fun. And with that said, take care, and I will see you in the next video.